All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Happy International Women's Day. We're really excited to be here. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group is proud to commemorate the International Women's Day 2024 by organizing this live conversation titled Inspire Inclusion. This discussion seeks to shed light on the theme while also highlighting the importance of inclusion, in driving sustainable development. As an organization committed to fostering economic growth and development in the country, the NESG recognizes the pivotal role of women in achieving, inclusion and equitable economic progress. Against this backdrop, we are having this session, to showcase the tremendous work we are doing with, within the NESG on gender and inclusion. And the great thing is that I am not alone. So our objective is to showcase the great work that is being done within the NESG, to inspire inclusion within the organization and beyond, and also some of our strategies we have used successfully in integrating gender and inclusion. Our title today is Inspire Inclusion, Commemorating International Women's Day 2024. My name is Adekemi Omole, and I am not alone. I have some amazing speakers here who will do great justice to the discussion. I have here Dr. Osasu Idirisu. Dr. Osasu Idirisu is the Executive Director of the Policy Innovation Center of the NESG. We also have here our amiable and wonderful Bimi Ibrahim. She is the head of the Workforce Management and Academy at the NESG. So let me just go ahead to just say warm welcome, Maz, and just let me give your greetings to the house.
Thank you so much, Adekemi. Happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women across the world doing very beautiful things to advance an inclusive society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kemi. Thank you, Kemi. Happy International Women's Day to every woman out there. We see you, we value you, we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And before we comment, I just also want to say thank you for the great work that you're doing to also, just walk the talk. Our first question will go to Dr. Osasu Idirisu. Can you expatiate on the theme of this year's celebration, Inspire Inclusion? What's your thought on it?
Thank you, Adekemi. So the theme for this year is Inspire Inclusion, and it speaks to two very important aspects of thinking about inclusion. So, the focus is women, right? But we have society on one hand, and then we have women on the other hand. So broadly, the theme speaks to celebrating diversity and empowerment and ensuring that we envisage or envision a world where women are valued, where women are appreciated, and where women are included. So on the part of the society, it's an opportunity to get that understanding, so increase that understanding about what it means to really include women, what it means for including them in social, economical, political, so bringing them right, at the center of that conversation. So first, that is on the part of society. And then on the part of women, we know that when women know are inspired and know that they're included, then you see that sense of ownership, sense of responsibility, taking more active roles in ensuring that we're building and advancing a gender inclusive society. So this Women's Day provides an opportunity for everyone to reflect on what barriers exist, first of all, looking at barriers that exist to including women, and begin to think or reflect about how to break down those barriers. What are the challenges to including women in decision-making spaces? Because there's no there's no need to talk about inclusion if we're not giving voice to the people in court that we're talking about including. So it's also an opportunity to reflect deeper on the need to have the voices of women in decision-making spaces so that they can speak directly to what would benefit them. And on this basis, we understand what their needs are. We understand what access opportunities are needed. We understand the sort of enabling environment, will be needed to accelerate progress, invest more in women, contribute to building an inclusive society. So broadly, this theme speaks to celebrating diversity and empowerment for women and bringing women rights at the center of building an inclusive society.
Thank you so much for that insightful response. And just speaking back on what Dr. Sasui has done, Madam Bimi. So, what are some of the key initiatives the NESG has implemented, to ensure that these barriers are broken, to ensure that women are, have that agency, and also, to promote gender and inclusion within the organization, ma'am?
Okay. Thank you, Kemi. Here at the NESG, we ensure that we have a diverse workforce at all times. And beyond just having a diverse workforce, we ensure that our people are valued, our people are recognized, our people are appreciated, because it's a people first culture. And we know that there is nothing we cannot achieve when our people are happy, when our people, are well engaged. We are very particular about the experience. So starting from the hiring process, we have policies and practices that just ensure that diversity is well-minded, in putting our team together, in growing our team as well, and in sustaining the ones we currently have. Other initiatives is the reward system. The reward system here is unbiased. It doesn't it doesn't favor a gender as against the other. In fact, and when we talk of gender equality, I speak to both genders. I mean, both the male and the female gender as well. We don't mark some roles for men and while some others for women. We don't differentiate pay scale to say that men are wholly entitled to one and women are not entitled to other. We just see everyone as equal here in NESG. And I think it's critical because when people come to work, you come to work as a professional. You have not come to work as male and you have not come to work as female. But part of being human, part of empathy is to say that, okay, we also run a flexible culture to say that we see you, we understand you. And this is evident in some of the work from home policy, even the leave, the maternity leave. And we have the paternity leave as well for men. So it's not just because, okay, she's a woman, she has, she's entitled to a maternity leave. Even our men, when we hear they have a new addition to their family, they also have, access to paternity leave as well. So in our reward system, in the recognition system, even in learning and development, even in charting career path for our people. And so in succession planning, we are conscious, of diversity, and we are also conscious of having, a people or a group of people that are very well engaged. And how do we ensure they're engaged? By valuing them, recognizing them. We believe everybody has something to, bring to the table, and that's how to feel included. When they belong, they feel safe in our community, and we know that when people are truly happy, they will go the extra mile, for the organization. Thank you, Kemi.
Thank you so much for that powerful response. So, diversity, recognition, and also appreciation, and also having policy and practices to guide and make sure that all these practices can be, that can be followed. Thank you so much, Madam Gumi. Going on to our next question, and which is for Dr. Osasui Dirisu. Ma, what are some of the key initiatives or programs being implemented by the Policy Innovation Center, to promote gender and inclusion?
Okay, thank you, Kemi. So first of all, at the Policy Innovation Center, gender and inclusion is a pillar. So the work that we do is dimensioned in 6 pillars: capacity development, gender and inclusion, evidence-based policy, behavioral insights application, social and behavioral research, and social and behavioral change. So it's considered a very important pillar. That's one. Secondly, our mission statement speaks to the approach that the Policy Innovation Center takes in all our programs as much as feasible, which is using approaches that are gender transformative, gender responsive. And so I'll speak to our very first initiative at the Policy Innovation Center, which is the Gender and Development course. So this was conceptualized in 2022, and we did this to fill a very important gap in advancing an equitable, inclusive society, and which was to ensure that the capacity of development practitioners, donors, policymakers, private, public sector. So the capacity of people at the center of either making decisions or advocating for gender equitable, gender responsive budgets, policies is built to ensure that when they go back to their various disciplines, they are able to reflect more deeply on using approaches that are tested, evidence-based, in reflecting on how to advance gender work. So since 2022 that we've conceptualized it, we have trained over 200 participants across a wide range of sectors. And this year is exciting for us because we are starting customized courses this year. Interestingly, while we're here on this webinar, the PIC is actually running a gender and taxation course. So this was a course that was customized for the Society of Women in Taxation in partnership with international budget partnerships to just highlight issues, specific gender issues, issues relating to the intersection of gender and taxation. And we're running this course. We've been running this course all week, but we have a wide range of focused, customized gender courses that we're also going to be running in Lagos and Abuja this year. And so that's one. And one of the things we do is keep up with the testimonial. So we're not training to tick a box. We're actually training to ensure that people can, first of all, understand the basic concepts of gender, and then on that basis, reflect on how to begin to mainstream, integrate gender into programming, policy, and research. And secondly, the Policy Innovation Center also hosts an annual event known as the Gender and Inclusion Summit. And we had the first run in 2022. It was the theme was connecting the dots, connecting the dots for a gender inclusive society. And then last year we had the second edition where we were speaking about building bridges, advancing gender and inclusion through that intersection of trade and health. And we're preparing to for Gender and Inclusion Summit 2024. But in addition to that, we don't end. The reason why the summit was conceptualized was to have that platform where everyone comes together once a year to take stock, to reflect on programs, policies, approaches, countrywide, or Africa-wide, reflecting on how we're making progress, because it's important to measure progress. It's not enough to just do intervention. So coming together to take stock, and then on the basis of taking stock, go into the next year with very important programs, approaches, to advance gender and inclusion in the coming year, and to ensure that the advocacy that comes from the summit is sustained. The PIC produces a purple book, which is a curation of all the policy and program recommendations coming from the summit. And right now, we're preparing to launch the Purple Book in April this year. And then finally, one other way that we advance gender and inclusion and women's, it's we ensure that on all our programs, so whether it's a research project, an intervention project, a policy project, we lead by example by ensuring that we're mainstreaming gender in all our programs and in all the approaches that we use at the center.
Thank you so much. And all our audience connecting, I just want you to just give a virtual emoji to everything they have said, because it's not easy to really walk the talk. So just drop your emojis just to, just to express your, like, you're listening in. So you've said a lot, and you said a lot. And now we're going to go on to our next question, just to take the conversation further. And this will be for Madam Bimi. How can an organization, create more inclusive workplaces for women? Some great initiatives you are championing, having flexible work options, having maternity and paternity leave. But how can we even make it more inclusive? Can you guide us with your response, Ma?
Okay, thank you, Kemi. To achieve an inclusive culture in an organization, it has to be intentional. So that intentionality has to be there, and then the awareness has to be created even within the organization, especially top down. So organizations that are mindful of DEI will be able to carefully define their culture. And if we say that culture is the lifeblood of an organization, and usually it is top down, it defines the direction how an organization will go. It defines how the organization will be represented outside. It defines the kind of experience that employees or the people that the organization engage will have within the organization. So I would say culture is critical. Number one is awareness. It's very important to create that awareness within, and intentionally from top down to using your word, walk the talk. So within the leadership space, within the organization, leadership spaces within the organization, ensure that there is a balance, ensure that there is equity, from top down. And what the benefits of DEI are quite a lot. When we look at the benefits, we know that it's what's giving it a thought. It's what putting some energy into it. It's what considering it. It might appear soft. It might appear that DEI itself might some target as a form of bias, in itself. But I look at it from the angle of the benefits. The benefits are much more than any bias that we can look, at. And even that which we call bias in itself is not. It's just human conditioning. It's the mind, conditioning. So my first point is awareness, even within the organization, at the leadership, level. The spaces up there should be a form of balance. And when there is balance, it's easier to define culture, and everybody just goes with the flow, because it's tough. If there is no alignment with line managers within an organization, especially on, a matter like this, because I was going to say in hiring, even if you have the best of policies, for recruitment, and DEI is at the center, you still need that buy-in of the job owner, who is the line manager. So that awareness for me is critical. And in terms of the benefits of DEI, one is it better positions the organization. It better positions the organization in this age where we speak of ESG. Even in chasing contracts here and there, in doing businesses, in relating with partners and all of that, they want to look at, okay, how well do you comply, to sustainability practices, to this, to that, and all of that. And DEI is at the center, of sustainability. And for me, I like to speak more to the people angle, which is the experience that we create for people. And there is no how that we want to give our people the experience, the good employee experience that they deserve if we don't pay attention to equity and inclusion. Yeah. Thank you, Kemi.
Thank you so much. Such a very, very profound response you're giving. You said something. Culture is the lifeblood of every organization. And you've also given us a reason to just champion DI. There's a lot of return on investment. So very powerful one. Really appreciate your response, ma'am. Over to you, Dr. Sasui. You've championed a lot of great work on gender-based discrimination. You've done a lot of work in creating data in Nigeria. This question goes to you, Ma. What strategies would you adopt, to address gender-based discrimination in the workplace and society as at large?
Thank you, Kemi. So first of all, when we think about gender-based discrimination, we're looking at discrimination that is happening on the basis of gender. So it's just first, laying that foundation. And in the workplace, there are many reasons why that happens. But I need to mention quickly that in many instances, when it happens in the workplace, it's not always explicit. So, because sometimes we look out for the explicit ones and we think that, okay, let's address them. But we need to just, be cognizant of the fact that sometimes when it's happening, it's actually not explicit, it's implicit. And that's a bit more subtle, more difficult to, to you kind of put your finger on and think about. But just speaking generally, in what ways, would this happen? And just like I said, some of the explicit ones, a lot of workplace policies have, would already deal with, like not wanting to employ someone on the basis of gender, for example. Those ones, some very clear-cut policies will take care of that. But let's just look at some very subtle ones, that happen from time to time. So, for example, sometimes we find ourselves holding people to higher standards because of their gender. So, oh, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Clearly.
can. Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Oh, awesome. So, for example, I mean, start with the most obvious one, not hiring someone, for example, on the basis of gender. And you may think that it doesn't happen, but it happened to me twice. One, I was hired eventually because I was the best candidate. But the second one didn't want someone, the employer did not want someone who was still actively in her active productive career because and even though they came back to apologize, I didn't think I wanted to work there. But just important to know that, yeah, this happens. Then sometimes it's even holding people on at a higher standard. Oh, you're a woman, you should be able to do this, or you're a man, you should be able to do this. And then sometimes it comes with discrimination because, for example, issues relating to pregnancy, having to take time off work, the promotion, reflecting on, creating standards that limit people's promotions. The big elephant in the room that we talk about a lot is the gender pay gap. Sometimes we find two people doing the same thing and someone being treated differently on the basis of gender. So two people have committed the same offense. And like I said, some of these things are implicit. And then somehow you find yourself excusing one person and then saying that this other person and then name calling, and then the other issues around sexual harassment. So quite a wide range of there in many ways that gender-based discrimination happens. I think one of the first places to start from is creating an enabling policy environment in the workplace. So ensuring that these things are not left to chance, ensuring that, for example, you have clear written policies that explain how people should be treated, bringing that human rights dimension into how people are treated, respected, and valued in the workplace. Having policies that speak to, gender relations in terms of, sexual harassment, gender-based violence, so creating that foundation, hiring policies, and Baby has spoken extensively about this, leave policies, promotion policies. And these are policies that are put in place irrespective of gender. Having said that, it's important to note, not from a competence point of view, but just from a biological point of view, that women would have, for example, there will be times when people would need concessions on behavior on the basis of gender. So, for example, is issues relating to, for example, somebody even goes on maternity leave. Those are boxes that we have ticked off, right? But coming back from maternity leave, people will still need some concession in terms of flexible working, closing earlier. It doesn't make them less competent. It doesn't mean that they will not still deliver on their jobs. It doesn't mean that providing some of these concessions, and I won't even call them concessions. I always like to look at this still on the basis of human rights and building an inclusive society that ensures that no one is left behind. So when we begin to talk about things like, okay, can you create a flexible opportunity, for example, for someone coming from maternity leave and to close a bit earlier, to work flexibly, or a man whose wife has just had a baby, also some opportunity to bear a bond, with his child. So these are some of the ways that we can do that. It's also important to have a whistleblowing policy, an opportunity that provides for people to report without being victimized for reporting. So because in the best of places, things will still happen. And just ensuring that people have that opportunity to speak out, creating a workplace that is not driven by fear, but driven by that opportunity for everyone to contribute to building a workplace that everyone can be proud of, and a productive a workplace that ensures that there's return on investments for the employer.
Thank you so much. That is so profound. For me, one of the things that you said was, gender, the impact of gender pay gap being a form of gender-based discrimination in the workplace. So our audiences, what was the thing that just stuck out for you of the things they just said now? Just drop your comments, just so that we can all just keep learning. So we're going to move on to our next question. Madam Gwemi, you hold such a significant position in the organization in that you help to you just navigate the experiences of the employees, and then it impacts on the experiences that the outsiders have. So I want to ask, what are the benefits of gender diversity in corporate leadership? I know you've mentioned some of it in terms of return on investment, in terms of opportunity for more investment into the organization. But are there just some more in terms of the benefits that comes in because of DEI into corporate leadership and decision making?
Okay, thanks, Kemi. Um, Aside from the return on investment, everything still leads to that. Number one is you have a better engaged workforce. And when you have a better engaged workforce, you will see your organization growing exponentially. Because when they are truly engaged, they can trust the system. When they trust the system, they feel safe. When they feel safe, they are not going anywhere. Even if they go anywhere, they still remain your ambassador. They remain loyal to you. So what DEI will do is it will help your people have that sense of belonging to that organization, to that system. I've seen a case of an employee that even after he left the system, he was in a he still came back to work to ensure that the system, everything was, going fine till there was a replacement, till the replacement was fully onboarded. And this was even at a senior level. That shows loyalty, that shows, and that's coming from an experience. And also because experience is always a build up. When there is DEI in leadership, it's also a way of shaping the society. It's also a way of shaping even the future, that we speak of, the future of work and even outside of work as well. Because there is a study that says, there are many challenges in the world today, but a very critical one is the problem of inequality. So if we can, resolve that, we'll be solving a lot of other problems because these have effects on mental health, and functionality of humans generally. So if we can get that right, it's important, for us to have a better planet, to live in, a better planet to exist in. So if leadership pay attention to DEI, they are also improving the society. They are also helping us, to be hopeful, to have a better future. Benefits to the organization. I mentioned a better engaged workforce. You know,
Okay.
it's linked to return on investment as well because when your people are happy, I repeat, they will go the extra mile. And when they go the extra mile, of course, you will see, the result. Another point is in having a better employment brand. You know, it's the truth is people outside the organization, they are looking inside as well. And when they see, oh, okay, on the board of this organization, oh, they can see the balance, oh, from the kind of output that the organization is coming up with in terms of even the write-ups, in terms of, the kind of materials that we put out there. When we are conscious of DEI, the world, people are seeing it, So it
Mm,
creates a better representation for the brand as well, and the employment brand. What makes a brand or an organization happy, if not that you can attract high flyers, if not that you can attract talent.
yeah.
Organizations that they make job posts and people just look at it, they don't even apply to it. Even when they pay professional job hunters, people still don't want to work in a toxic environment. So when we work on diversity, to achieve diversity is not difficult, But the inclusion part is where I think we need a lot of effort. To measure diversity is also easier, but to measure inclusion is a bit, not, as direct as the way we measure, diversity. So I would say that paying attention to DEI is it's important. In fact, it's at the center, because if that is solved, a lot of other challenges will be solved. Then
Mm,
paying attention to DEI helps an organization to be more innovative,
mm,
because you have a wider mix of talent. You have a wider group of people, different experiences, different knowledge, skills, and exposure, to work with. And when you have an innovative group of people, or you work in an environment where they are creative, they are innovative, you come up with new products, new ideas, you are growing, the team is growing, everybody feels good, you feel you're part of a community, and that alone is fulfilling, that alone is satisfying. So when we keep emphasizing experience of people with attention to DEI, I think people will have better experiences. And I say it again, experience is always a build up. When you leave this organization, you move to the next one. If all you've been
mm,
part of has been a toxic one, even unknowing to you, you become toxic as well. So when we pay attention to DEI, we are making our world better indirectly. So
mm,
does the benefit to the organization, even the wider society as well,
mm.
will enjoy, this benefit too. Thank you, Kemi.
Thank you so much. As you were speaking, it felt like, oh, yeah, that's my experience. Oh, so it's really true because working with the Policy Innovation Center, NESG, has just really been a dream come true. And every point you were saying was just adding up. So, audience, we're giving you some of our trade secrets so you can apply DEI, and there's so much return on investment. So, this will take us to our next question. And I think Dr. Sasui led the setup of the National Gender-Based Violence Dashboard for Nigeria, which is situated within the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. So, Ma, I just want to ask, measurement is always an issue. How can we measure progress towards gender equality and inclusion in Nigeria, given your wide range of work, in the sector?
Thank you, Kemi. Yes, measurement. How do we know we're making progress? The data has to speak. I mean, I know we sometimes like to reflect on um, you know, qualitative indicators of progress, but then also we have to look at the data. So I would just speak, it's a wide, but I'll speak to just a few. Firstly is decision making. So we know we're making progress when we see better representation in decision making at different levels. So, and this is very easy to measure, right? Like, when we're talking about diversity, like maybe mention that. Yeah, so this is very easy to mention. So I'm not saying that that solves all the problems, but it's a good starting point. So, decision at the level of the board, at the level of local government leadership, state government leadership, legislation, um, you know, federal appointments, state level appointments. So, how are we reflecting our commitments to building an inclusive society? In looking at representation, and sometimes you may think it doesn't matter, But it's clearly proven that if you do not have the representation of voices in the room, then you cannot talk about being completely inclusive. You can even discuss a problem from your perspective that has nothing to do with what the person at the receiving end is suffering. So that representation is clear, and it's something that we have been talking about. I mean, we at the last election, I know that it was an aspiration to see better representation at different levels of government, and it's still something that we have to continue to talk about. So, one, representation at decision making. Representation regards economic opportunities. So you begin to say, what proportion of women, for example, are financially included? Why is that important? We know the benefits of including women, for example, in financial decision-making spaces, but also for economic opportunities. We know the benefits. The evidence tells us that that has tremendous benefits for education of children, nutritional outcomes, access to health services, access to educational services. So, and even in looking at that as a massive contribution to GDP. So, we know we're making progress when we see better representation regarding economic opportunities. We know we're making progress when we see closure or opportunities for the gender pay gap that we keep talking about to close. We know that we're making progress when we now look at other indices. So we're looking at um, gender-based violence. So we look at what the data tells us about gender-based violence, what the data tells us about access to justice. So even when gender-based violence has occurred, what proportion of women or people who are harassed, are having opportunities to get a voice, get their voices heard, and have access to justice. And then finally, we know that we are making progress in terms of what the measures tell us when we see that we're looking at all our indices regarding the different sectors, representation in different sectors. We're looking at opportunities to include, for example, if we're talking about farming, we're looking at what it means. So gender composition for governing bodies, gender composition for in the workforce, gender composition for, so when we're looking at the composition of different genders at different key sectors in the economy, then we can say that we're making progress. And then just speaking briefly to qualitative indicators, when we start to improve opportunities for flexible working conditions, improve addressing issues relating to unpaid care work, the impact of, first of all, on socio-economic development, but also the impact on building sustainable work systems for the country. So when we begin to look at some of these soft issues, addressing implicit biases and creating opportunities for men, women, people with disability, boys and girls, and everyone to have some equitable access to services and opportunities, regardless of their gender, regardless of whatever social or economic disadvantage they face, then we can say we're making progress with building an inclusive society.
Wow, thank you so much for helping to qualify even to quantitative and qualitative, representation and decision making, access to justice, then for qualitative, flexible working condition, addressing the issue of unpaid care work. Really profound, and I'm sure our audiences, are taking down the notes. The questions have begun to roll in, but I know that our audience may not know fully the powerful women we have in the room. So, Dr. Sasi, could you please just introduce the PIC to our audience, and then Madam Gbemi will do the same for NESG. Over, ma.
Thank you, Kemi. Yeah, thank you. The Policy Innovation Center is the first national institutionalized behavioral initiative in Africa. We're an initiative of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, and our vision is to deliver better policies and innovative solutions for social impact. And we work across 7 sectors. I've talked a bit about agenda work. Let me stop there, but you can find out more about us by looking at our website or our social media pages.
Over, Madam Gbemi.
Okay, so the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, is a private sector-led organization We are an NGO, and we are committed to the growth of the economy, the Nigerian economy, and not just national alone. We are also committed to the continent, to the African continent as well. How do we do this? We do this through our think tank model, and one of it is the dialogue partner role. So what we do is we bring private sector partners together with the public sector partners to dialogue on ways to move the country forward. Here we have a team of experts, a team of technical experts. We also rely on the strength of our volunteers to do the things that we do. We run the policy commission structure as well, where we have about 13 policy commissions and 44 thematic groups as well. These are people, a group of professionals working in the national interest, working, committing their time, committing their expertise, to national development. And we pride ourselves in our philosophy that we pay to serve. When we do the work, we don't care who takes the glory. What we are particular about is the growth of the nation, the growth of the continent as well. And to learn more about us, you can visit our website, as you can see, showing www.nesgroup.org. Also at the NESG, we have centers with which we carry out our interventions. One of it is the Policy Innovation Center. We also have the NSG Center as well. Thank you. Thank you, Kemi.
Wow. Thank you so much. Actually, the question was from Evelyn Adazion from LinkedIn. So, Evelyn, you have your question answered now. Now we're going to go to our second question from a participant on X. Unfortunately, they didn't drop their name. This person says, as an individual or employee experiencing discrimination in the workplace with no policy in place, what do you advise me to do? Madam Gbemi, I think I will just pass this question to you.
Thank you. With no policy in place, it is tough. It is tough, but the first thing to do is to report the case to your line manager. That is, if your line manager is not the one harassing you. But if your line manager is the one harassing you, I encourage people to speak up, still speak up. Report to the higher authority, to the next line. If it happens that it's the next line that is harassing you, if there is another line, report. But if the upper line, the uppermost, is where the harassment is coming from and there is no policy, I advise you to look elsewhere. Look for job elsewhere because your mental health is very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Sasi, I don't know if you also want to add to that or if you got the question. Somebody dropped from X, dropped the question that as an individual or employee experiencing discrimination in the workplace with no policy in place, what do you advise they do? I don't know if you got my question, ma.
So, are you speaking to me?
Yes, Dr.
Yes,
Sassi, are
yes.
you?
Just in case you want to also
Sorry, I
respond.
lost connection for a second.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. And just adding a sentence to what Bemi has said. I mean, the starting point would be to speak to your line manager. I know sometimes when people have problems in the work, and I'll give you a very practical example quickly. When people have problems in the workplace, sometimes with no policies in place, there's that feeling that it's a completely helpless situation. But I think one way to approach is there a champion? Is there a role model? Is there a mentor? And that's why, even within the workplace, mentorship is important. Is there an ally? Is there someone who is of good standing within that workplace that you can confide in if, the line manager doesn't work? And the example I wanted to quickly give, I just joined this organization, settling in, and someone had been repeatedly well, harassed in the workplace. And she came to me one evening and said, I just want to speak to you. And she spoke to me. And thankfully, I came into senior management. So I had some power, to help her address the issue because she was being sexually harassed. And I was able to help to address, in subtle ways, bring that issue into the fore. And got commitments that those were things that we're not going to tolerate in the workplace. So if you're not able to speak to your line manager, or maybe the line manager is even the person harassing you, the next thing to think about is there someone you can carefully speak. But what you should not do is keep silence and play the victim, because ultimately this can have devastating consequences on mental and even physical well-being.
All right. Thank you so much. X is really dropping their question. Participant listening in from X. We have another one here that says, how can men be engaged as allies in the fight for gender equality and inclusivity? So I would let Madam Gbemi just take a first attempt, and then we'll go to Dr. Sasi.
Okay, just to be sure I get the question right, how
Yes.
can men be engaged as
Yeah.
allies in
Yeah.
fight for
The
equality?
fight. Yes,
Okay.
and inclusivity.
Okay. So it's important to note that some men these days or in recent times, they now feel the way women used to feel. So that's why when we talk of gender equality, it's not just for the female gender only. It's for both the male, the female, and even the other gender. You know, and so how can men? It's just to say that it depends on how it's been defined within the space where they exist, and also to tell people, and also a way of creating awareness to say that when defining these things, it's not just for female only; it's for both gender. Both gender in designing programs and designing policies, and also to let men know that it's just okay. The same way women are speaking up, it's okay to also speak up as well. When you feel sidelined, when you feel not recognized or not valued, just speak up. And as we celebrate International Women's Day, I've seen different photographs from different organizations. There are men inside it, when form the group, to take photographs. It's both men and, women taking it. So it's not that a gender is left, behind in these um, discussions around equality. Thank you.
Oh, all right, amazing. Over, Doctor. So, how do you think we can engage men in the fight against gender equality? I think Doctor may be experiencing
And connectivity
some
issues.
connectivity issue. Are you able to hear us, Ma? Okay, but maybe, Madam Bimi, I think
Okay.
what we will do is that we'll go to our next question, and then when she comes up, then we
Okay.
will
She
then
can
go
take
over.
it.
Yes, she can take it. Can you share how does the NESG PIC address issue bordering on mental health in the workplace?
Okay. Within our own space, within our organization,
Yes,
I will
yes,
speak to two.
yes.
One within
Oh,
our organization and what we do also for the society at large. So within our organization, we emphasize empathy. We emphasize empathy a lot. When we relate with people with empathy, it helps us to understand one another. So one is empathy. The second one is flexibility. We run a very flexible work environment. Fine, we focus a lot on performance. We're a performance-driven organization, but at the same time, we are a very flexible organization as well. And like we say often within here, that an organization that will attract and retain top talent in this era must be flexible. Because if you look at the talent, the high flyers, the talents that know what they are doing, you just have to be flexible with them. The terms they want to work with, what motivates them, it's a lot different these days than what it used to be. So organizations that we keep the best of the best talent must be flexible. And when talking of mental health, it's about being empathic and also understanding the person, understanding the people, and being flexible. Flexible with their work schedules, flexible with their work time, understanding them, trying to feel what they feel, and being sensitive, around people. Yeah. Thank you,
thank
Kemo.
you. And I can just attest that I was a beneficiary of empathy that you showed to me last week. So yes, thank you for walking the talk. So, Dr. Sasui, a participant from X had asked a question about how can we engage men in the fight for gender equality and inclusivity? And I know you just have to help us answer that question as well, Ma.
Sorry, can you take the question again?
Okay, how can men be engaged as allies
Oh,
in the fight for gender equality and inclusivity?
okay, thank you. That's a very, very important question. I think first of all is join the celebration of International Women's Day. Yeah, but beyond that, in many ways, it's society, and it's made up of everyone. So it's also myopic, for example, to think that we can build inclusion or advancement opportunities for women without the men. I think one way is to first of all acknowledge that sometimes um, education awareness is needed. So as we create opportunities, first of all, is enlightenment. So just even getting men to see that this is a collective action, collective responsibility to build an inclusive society. And so, first of all, engaging men to give women the opportunity. When we talk about giving women the opportunity, we're not saying that women are not competent enough, for example, to um, take opportunities and get the work done. But if you're already in a patriarchal system that is driven by norms that subjugate women, then you have to have the conversations about opening up from some of the biases, shifting some of those norms that would limit the capacity or limit the opportunities available for women to participate. So I think it's first of all just debiasing the conversation around opportunities for women, getting everyone to see that it's all hands on deck to build an inclusive society, to build a productive society, to ensure that the next generation is carried along. So if you're developing a women's empowerment program, male engagement is an important part of it, because from entering the community, the gatekeepers are most likely to be men. Coming into the community, you can't take a woman within a community and empower her without carrying the structures, the leadership, her husband, her spouse, family members along. So creating those opportunities for men to give women a chance is one. I think a second one would be ensuring also that men understand better the need for protection for women. So many times when we have conversations about gender-based violence, right? There's always that thinking about who is the victim, who is the villain. So opening up our minds to see, I remember having a conversation so many years ago, and someone saying to me that, oh, he didn't know that women suffer from mental health consequences of sexual harassment. Yes, they do. And so understanding that there are consequences, sometimes these consequences last a lifetime, and understanding that on that basis we should reflect on creating that society where women can open up, feel free to express their talents, contribute meaningfully to society. So there are many ways that men can actually even champion this cause and support women to take this conversation beyond the limitations that they may have. And also they can do that by amplifying the voice of women. So it's International Women's Day. We're happy to see a lot more men speaking up today than women. So we don't want to see women's voices everywhere. We also want to see the men championing the cause from the basis that when we are doing this, we are all coming together to build a society that is inclusive and works for everyone.
Wow, such powerful, such rich conversation. And we have a last question. And I'm glad that I'm not the only one who thinks this is a very insightful one. It's from a participant on YouTube. Um, Her name is Buki Afolabi. Buki, thank you for dropping your message. She says, thanks so much to all our facilitators. My question is, how can we overcome the problem of women victimizing women at workplaces? How can this be curbed? I would let Madam Bemi start, and then Dr. Sassi would help us round off.
Okay, I would say women victimizing women. Okay, because we hear more of women supporting women, you know. So it's both ways. We see a lot of women groups. We see, the kind of support that women, especially in women in business, women, corporate women, even now market women, people that are not, into the white collar job, they also receive, from one another. So, and speaking to women victimizing women, I think is the solution is to create more awareness, more campaigns, on the need for empathy, on the need to understand, one another better. But when it's coming from a woman, and when you look at it, the woman victimizing the other woman also has had a similar experience, But because of what we had mentioned earlier, a toxic experience is always a build up. When experience, we build up experience before we know what's happening, we start to manifest that toxic behavior. So a woman that had been through some form of harassment now sees another one being harassed and told her that your case is better. Is it not just to do with one? Go and do it and get your promotion. Go and do it and get the voice you want to get, in that social or corporate space. Despite the fact that she went through even a tougher, more difficult situation, she should be an advocate against that. But then, because of the pain, because of the toxicity that she's been through, indirectly she's now exhibiting, that kind of toxic behavior. So I think a way to heal our world is to ensure that as an individual, give that next person a better experience. We could be through your smile. People are going through a lot these days. So within your control, if it's to bless someone with a smile, bless that person with a smile. If it's to bless someone with your kindness, at least you have control over that. Bless that person with that kindness. That way you are contributing to the positive experience in that person's life. Because the truth is, people exhibit what they have experienced or encountered again and again. So
True.
it's to bless the society. Thank you,
Yes,
Kevin.
yes, thank you, ma. Doctor, in 1 minute, can you just also help us? Can we have your perspective on this, ma?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I thank the person for that very important question. I know that we are all for supporting ourselves, but there are also outliers, and we've had instances. In fact, I facilitated a panel session last year, and the first person who spoke out said it's even women who sometimes, limit the opportunities that other women have to thrive, and not necessarily the men. But it's a balance. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen either way. So first of all, I think it's just the bias, the assumption that that doesn't exist. Because I've also heard people say, "Oh, no, 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 it doesn't exist. It's always, women supporting women." So yes, it exists. The second thing is, within the context of the workplace, that is why policies are important. That's why leadership is important. And thankfully, we talk about gender balance in leadership. So we're not saying an all men leadership or an all women leadership. Within the workplace, when you create an opportunity, first of all, for participatory policy, so everybody knows what the policy says and the interpretation of the policies. Now, sometimes they may be accept, and I'll answer this question from the perspective on a real life example. Now, sometimes there may need to be concessions, ensuring also that the policy provides an opportunity for a process when that needs to happen is important. These things have to be documented. And so we had an instance, so many years ago when, you can't take maternity leave unless you're, at least 1 year apart or something. And they will have someone else get pregnant, within a few months after she resumed. And the person who was insisting that she wasn't going to go on maternity leave again was a woman. And I remember saying to her, what are you going to do? Like, she's most likely going to have a cesarean section because, how do you keep someone? How do you have her resume the week after she puts? It's not possible. Okay. And then she says, oh, the policy says this. And I'm like, okay, so we made the policy. So we go back and sit down and ask ourselves, what is the way forward with this? So one is having policy. Two is mentorship. Mentorship in the workplace is so critical. People need to be able to, there has to be someone you can speak to, when things like this happen, starting from, for example, your line manager. If the line manager is the person, there has to be someone else to escalate to. There must be systems and structures. I mean, for large organizations, that's why they even have opportunities for counseling, employee assistance programs. There has to be an opportunity for people to open up and have difficult conversations. So whether it's a woman or a man who is, at the forefront of, victimizing an employee, there must be a process documented, understood. There must be opportunities for people to speak out, understand what these issues are, go back, refine policy, address them. But it's important to ensure that when these sort of things happen, people can walk through a process to get protected. So yes, this happens, and there's always a way out. It's reflecting deeply and thinking about the entry point to getting someone who will be a voice for that person at that point who may be voiceless.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has been a very well, like the responses have just been so well rounded. I've been typing my notes, and I would just want us in just 30 seconds. Um, what are your last thoughts, Madam Bimi, as we celebrate this International Women's Day?
Okay. I will say thanks to the audience, thanks to those that have been with us, and to women out there and to the men in their lives and around them, supporting them. I say happy International Women's Day. And I also would like to tell everyone that whatever it is you're going through, it's important to always speak up, talk to somebody, in order to get a closure or to get a solution, to whatever it is you're going through. And we're celebrating women today. We are talking of equality, but also the men too. We celebrate you, and we say that we've spoken to harassment on the side of women. I know that men too, some men, in fact, these days, a lot of men also are going through harassment. So speak up. The same thing we've said about women applies to you as well as, a man. Thank you, Kemi.
Thank you so much, Ma. Dr. Sasui, your last word, Ma, in 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Kemi. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. I celebrate everyone who is working hard to ensure that women are valued, understood, and respected. I also celebrate all the he for she's who are supporting women today and beyond to ensure that we are building an inclusive society. Thank you to all the men. Thank you to all the women. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, our audience. If we can just give like a virtual clap, because this has really been a very powerful one for me, and I know to everyone who has listened in. And we are going to end with one of our participants' quotes from LinkedIn. She said, her name is Goodness Ejin Obili. She says, "To all the women who keep showing up and showing off, more power. To all the women who stood, still stand, and shall keep standing, more power. To such women, may we be them, may we know them, may we raise them." Happy International Women's Day. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye,
Thank you. Bye
everyone.
bye.